So this year's rookie class in F1 has fairly impressed for the most part. It's also one of the biggest rookie classes we've had in a long time, since like 2016. And I say for the most part because we know who's not impressing. Hungary Pirelli tire test. And it's also been a big toss-up amongst fans who they think has been the best rookie this year, with popular opinion leaning on Isack Hadjar. But in today's video, I'm going to be explaining why I don't think it's Isack Hadjar and why I think it's actually been Gabriel Bortoleto. Be sure to subscribe. We're trying to reach 10,000 subscribers, and also follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to reach 300 there. But before we get into these two, let's talk about the other rookies this year. Colapinto and Doohan, as much as I like making fun of them, they cannot really be judged properly when they're driving, on average, the worst car of the season. And in Doohan's case, he was quite literally set up for failure. Alpine were going to replace him with Colapinto no matter what he did. Even if he won 3 races in a row, Colapinto was going to be in that Alpine seat because A, his buyout from Williams was expensive, and B, South America bring in quite a lot of money. But I do hope for the best for these two. I'm not so sure if Doohan can come back to F1, but there's always the Alpine Hypercar program. And Colapinto, it's still early into his career. We saw what he can do last year in a situation he's comfortable with. It only takes time. Let's start things off with the most hyped rookie since Stoffel Vandoorne. I'm joking, since Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli. I think general opinion is that he should have went to Williams or do another year of F2, which would have been much better for him. But logistically, considering the situation, I just don't think that was possible. If Lewis Hamilton didn't go to Ferrari, then yes, it would have been possible. But James Vowles has been having his eyes set on Carlos Sainz for a long time and was gonna pick him up if he was free eventually. And I don't think Valtteri Bottas would have went back to Mercedes as a full-time driver if he was on a 1-year deal like he was from 2017 to 2021. I don't think he would have liked to be in a situation where he was essentially warming the seat for someone who's gonna eventually replace you. So yeah, logistically, I don't think it was possible for Antonelli to do another year of F2 or go to Williams because Hamilton went to Ferrari. But enough with the seat talk. How has he been doing this year? Well, I think he's doing what you'd expect a rookie to do. He's not consistent at all. There's flashes of pace, but no flashes of consistency during the races. That builds up over time with experience. And I don't think you can necessarily compare Antonelli this year to Max Verstappen back in 2015. Those were completely different situations. Max Verstappen back in 2015 was paired alongside another rookie, so it was easier to balance off where these two drivers stand amongst the grid. Kimi Antonelli this year, however, is inexperienced and paired alongside a top 3 driver on the grid. So yeah, make of that as what you will. So what do I think of Antonelli's future? I think he definitely has potential. There's been flashes of it this year with a pole position in Miami, but I still think he was too rushed in Mercedes. I think he would have been perfectly fine at Williams, but I really think he should have done another year at F2. Similar to Logan Sargent, where a lot of people said he should have done one more year in F2, and I completely agree with that, but I'm not saying that Sargent and Antonelli are on the same level. Oliver Bearman has been a bit under the radar. You'd expect him to be glazed by the media after last year, but no, he's been a bit under the radar. I think he's been one of the more underrated rookies after my gradings video and I look back at his performances. He's been pretty consistent, getting P11s. Obviously, his teammate Esteban Ocon is bringing in better results. He is the more experienced driver, to be fair. But I think Ollie is keeping his own. I think he has a long future ahead of him in the sport, and I can't wait to see what he does in Ferrari when Lewis Hamilton eventually retires. So not so much to say on Oliver Bearman. But now the main topic of the video, why, in my opinion, I rate Bortoleto more than Isack Hadjar and why I think he's been the best rookie this year. For starters, on balance throughout the season so far, the Sauber hasn't been as good as the Racing Bulls. I think recently you could argue that it is, but I'm still going to lean towards the Racing Bulls is the better car. But the Sauber isn't as bad as to what some people are making it out to be. I've seen people saying that it's the 9th best car in the grid. No, you can't look at me with a straight face and tell me that the Sauber is worse than the Haas or the Alpine. It's definitely better than those cars, and I think it's also been better recently than the Aston Martin at some occasions. Another reason to why I think Bortoleto has been better is who they are stacked up against. Isaac Hadjar has been stacked up against Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, and Liam this year hasn't been in the most confident state considering what has been going on behind the scenes at Red Bull and being dropped only after his second race for the team. And recently, now that he's starting to regain some of that confidence, he's been catching up to Isaac Hadjar and is only 2 points behind him in the standings. And what about Yuki Tsunoda? Well, in their first 2 races as a teammate, they have been tied 1-1, but given that Tsunoda has been longer at Racing Bull since Isaac Hadjar, in fact, I think he's been the longest serving Toro Rosso driver, I think by now he would still be ahead of Hadjar in the standing. And who is Gabriel Bortoleto stacked up against? That is right, Nico Hülkenberg. Now this year so far, Bortoleto has been beating Hülkenberg in qualifying and is the only Sauber driver to have made it to Q3 this year. Hülkenberg has not been making it to Q3. In fact, the race where he scored his first podium, he started on P19. And I think it's really important to point out that he's been doing better than Hülkenberg in qualifying because Nico Hülkenberg is notoriously a really fast driver on Saturday. Think back to the 2010 Brazilian Grand Prix when he got his first pole position. Think back to the 2013 Italian Grand Prix, qualifying P3 for, ironically enough, Sauber. Think back to the 2020 70th anniversary Grand Prix when he qualified on P3 in a car that he has had less running than Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez. Nico has been Mr. Saturday for his whole career. In fact, 2023 with Haas, qualified P3 or P2 in Canada, and he got grid penalty because of the red flag. We don't talk about that. And now Gabriel Bortoleto, in only his first season, has been beating Nico Hülkenberg in qualifying. This is nothing short of impressive. And in the races, again, it's a granted that Hülkenberg will be doing better than him, similar to Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman at Haas. And one thing I think it's worth mentioning between Hülkenberg and Bortoleto is that it's both of their first seasons with the team. Before this, Bortoleto was a McLaren Junior and Hülkenberg was at Haas. So yeah, I think Bortoleto has been the most impressive out of the rookies. And I even mentioned this in my now privated season preview that Bortoleto, in my opinion, is the best rookie on the grid. And if Lando Norris ever decides to leave McLaren one day, I don't mind seeing him in that seat, although I think he's locked in for the Audi project, isn't he? Now that I've given my opinions to why I think Bortoleto is the best rookie on the grid, why hasn't anyone been mentioning his name in conversations? Especially within the media. The 2 most hyped rookies going into this year was Ollie Behrman and Kimi Antonelli, and they finished P12 and P6 in the championship respectively. Well, to be fair to Behrman, he did 3 F1 races last year and impressed on 2 of them, with not so impressive one in Brazil, but that's fine, that was his first ever wet race. And that is what added to his rookie hype, so we will let that slide. And as for the hype surrounding Kimi Antonelli, it was because Toto Wolff was treating him as if he's the second coming of Jim Clark himself. And I guess we can throw in a bit of Colapinto in there considering his 2024 season and him being a reserve driver for Alpine. But why wasn't Hadjar and Bortoleto talked about as much compared to Antonelli and Behrman going into this year, considering they were literally fighting against each other for the championship in F2 last year? And it even went down until the final race. In fact, I think the last time we've seen 2 rookies battle for the F2 championship go into F1 in the next year, the last time we saw that was probably Lando Norris and George Russell back in 2019. So considering these 2 fought tooth and nail for the championship in F2 the year before, you would think they would have a lot of media hype surrounding them going into their first F1 seasons, but no. Everybody wrote Isaac Hadjar off like he was gonna have a 2021 Tsunoda type season. To be fair, I am also guilty of that if you watch the now privated video. But in Bortoledo's case, I guarantee you at least 50% of F1 fans who've never seen an F2 race didn't know who he was until they saw his name on the timing sheets in Melbourne. He is probably the least hyped F2 champion of the last, I don't know how many years, 10 years? I feel like Drugovich and Teo Pourchaire's championships were brought up in conversation a lot more than Bortoledo. And they took, like, what, 3 seasons to get their championships? Bortoledo is a one-and-done F2 champion. He is also a one-and-done F3 champion. So why wasn't there any hype from the media surrounding this man? Granted, I think we all had the opinion last year that Invicta did have a better car than Prima in F2. F2 is not equal, by the way. It's all setup dependent. And Prima dropped the bomb on the new F2 regulations while Invicta nailed them. I guess that's one reason why, but I still really don't get it. Do I think it's British bias? Is that plausible? Because Fernando Alonso did bring up that point, and I think it is a fair point because we've all just been hearing Behrman and Antonelli, but I think I have the answer. There hasn't been a Brazilian F1 driver since 2017, since Felipe Massa. So that is a very long time. And with a lack of a Brazilian figure in motorsport, the media attention wouldn't really be on the Brazilian rising stars or the South American rising stars for that matter, considering that most people haven't heard of Franco Colapinto last year until he jumped into the Williams seat. But let me know what you think. Do you think it's British bias and the media hates South America, and if you think Bortoledo has been doing better than Isaac Hadjar this year? And with that, that'll do it for today's video, and goodbye.